welcome to our DNA activation and attunement group coaching is what we're calling this experience. And I have created an agenda for us tonight. We are being welcomed by the sound. So I may have shared with you before that before each activation attunement, I have the same frequencies that I return to. The sound is my latest vibration that I'm entering into. And so I've added her, this artist, to our healing work list to inspire you as well. I still use Hildegard von Bingen vision to also clear and open my space, but I felt called to share this new vibration with you today to just be one of the first things tonight to inspire your practice over the next 4 weeks. So my goal in this time is to help you to connect to where you are right now in the process, a clear vision for the next 4 weeks. Like, what am I going to be doing every day? And how is this light working through me? Like, what am I doing? Those are the questions that I'm answering. Specifically, our agenda is, so we're going to talk about starting and restarting the process. And because right now, 99% of the participants of the DNA Activation Attunement Public Program are Pleiadian Institute students, and 99% of you have already gone through some part of the process. So I'm going to have that in mind tonight, and I'm going to talk about how this program integrates with our light body activation courses, which are where you are operating inside of Pleiadian Institute. And we're actually I'm going to share my screen with you today, and we're going to go back and forth between the DNA Activation Attunement Public Program and Pleiadian Institute, our course portal, which if you're watching this live with me right now, you haven't been there yet, but you will be there today. And this time that we share together is really just going to give you an insight into how these two experiences mirror one another, our public experience and your experience as a student moving through this process. But for the other one person who is right now and everyone else moving forward that watches this archive that is not enrolled as a student at Pleiadian Institute, there's real benefit and also an understanding that this program is being delivered in multiple ways to multiple different groups of people. And I think we're all stronger ultimately when the group that just really wants the healing comes together with a group that is driven by like learning a specific modality, and we can really learn from one another the most in this space. So I'm grateful to be here with you tonight doing this. That is where we're going to start. So we have a second and third item on our agenda and a question and answer period. And instead of talking about all of that, I feel like we should just dive into it, and was led into this work one way. And where I am now in this work and understanding its purpose and what we're doing is I'm in another place with it. And I don't know how to describe it except you're kind of going through this process with me. And so what I can explain to you now that I haven't really been able to articulate so far is that this DNA activation attunement process is an ancient mystery school teaching. And these teachings were held by priests and priestesses of the light. And I think it's really meaningful, since we're all women right now in this group, to recognize this. We had this, I like to think of it like this, the power and the gift of motherhood, right? I think of that as the same power and the gift as being a steward of the light. Like, your children are like this huge blessing that's like the biggest blessing you've ever had in your whole life, but then it's this huge responsibility that's like the biggest responsibility that you've ever had in your life. And the enormity of it, you don't get it until you're in it, and like the role of the mother has come upon you. And I feel as though the role of the priestess and of understanding the light and of holding the space for that light are similar to the role of the mother and the child. And so the original teachers of this process that's at the beginning of what we're going through were the priestesses. And what we know from that period of time, is that there was, and has been since then, like a real abuse, or the energy of the patriarchy became so out of balance that the energy of the feminine holding the light couldn't be honored, like in the way that it needed to be. And so now, fast forward thousands of years, and we're here, and like we're ready to enter into a new time together, into this holding the power of our divine feminine, and it is connected to the light and to our ability to be the stewards of that light, the holders of that light. And so I'll share this with you now. So this process that we're in right now, we are in the program where the healing is taking place. What I am in the process of developing is, in order to really facilitate these activations and attunements, the certification process is a training in the work of the priestess. It's actually an induction into the order that governs the light workers, the priestesses, and those that work with the light. So there's this whole ancient ceremonial process that one must go through in order to hold and deliver that light. And so we are like at the ground floor level, where we are just like breathing the light through our bodies. And I, as a practitioner, am not necessarily approaching you as a priestess, although when you meet me in that space, then we meet together, my light honoring your light, and that is the spark for the healing to happen. So as I work with this process even more, I am able to articulate that. And what I can understand is that in my own healing work, that always happened. I always understood that it's my job as a healer to find that and look for that light and breathe that even more light into. It's almost like a fire. Like if you are trying to get a fire to get big again, you might like blow on the one flame that's like there, or like feed that one flame with like extra crinkly leaves, right? There's a method when you see the light, that one flame, to get it to grow. And usually if you have like a fire pit and you see the flame, you can almost always, once that first flame sparks, you can get it to grow. And the same is true for healing. Like everyone has a spark of light in them, even if they're like at the end of their level of health and hope, and they still have that light. And if you work together to increase that light and to blow on that light, then it's inevitable that the healing happens. And so I've always known that on a very intuitive level, but this is like a systematic level in which we can all train in our attention to the light. So if you have not yet entered the Akashic Records, the Tantric Healing Chamber in the Akashic Records, no matter what point you are in your journey, we're going to actually, this is a perfect point to switch over. We're going to talk about a perfect place to jump back in, because I want you to, wherever you are right now, you've come to a certain point, and now here you are. And so we want to, I like to think of it like this, remember, this physical exercise. So like imagine that you are out of your exercise routine for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. I don't know how long it's been, but like, let's just say it's too long. And you are now ready to like jump back into that routine. So what we're going to do is, I have really meditated on a good plan to just like jumpstart your connection to the light again in a fresh way, and then jump back into where you left off. And so hopefully that was clear to you. This work is big, and putting it into words, I'm learning. and we're learning together. And I'm grateful you guys are all here with me doing this. So we're going to share screens, and I am going to navigate back and forth between I wonder if we can still see each other when I share the screens, but it's okay, we'll come right back. So this right here, you're familiar with. This is the program dashboard for the DNA Activation and Attunement Program. If you scroll down, you can already see it's broken up into 4 areas, 4 parts of our journey. And each of these parts has 10 portals in it. And each of these portals is leading you through a different stage of the light body activation process. Inside of Pleiadian Institute, I'm going to bring you into a program portal. And it's just the one that I have open right now. If I can click on it, there we go. So this is the Spiritual Intuitive Healer Program Portal. Every program in Pleiadian Institute has a program portal. And what you're going to find is that the DNA activation attunement the way that these are divided in here, these portals that are divided up with 10 portals in each one, they are similarly divided up inside of your program portal. And so you're going to see that they mirror one another. So that was the program portal. And so you'll see then there's a program portal, and then we're all going to enter, and this is why it doesn't matter what portal I'm in right now, and this is the new magic of our space together. No matter what program we are in, we are all going to participate in the courses together. So where everyone from all programs are all going to be enrolled in the course that they're working on together. And so it's going to give us there's so many more beautiful benefits that are coming through this, but we're not here to necessarily talk about that right now. What I want to show you instead is the portal itself. So these are called course portals. So if you are anywhere in the first 6 weeks of the process, you're going to come into Light Body Activation 101. So Light Body Activation 101 corresponds with Awaken. Awaken is actually a little bit longer than Light Body Activation 101. And this leads you through a more in-depth process that we have created video orientations for. So I'm not going to go over all of the details inside of Pleiadian Institute right now. However, what I just want to show you, we want to look more at the healing journey. So you can see here, the portals are laid out. So there are 6 portals, and they correspond with the first section of our DNA activation and attunement. Then as we move into the Light Body Activation 102, which I don't have up here, I'll click on it. I hope that button works. And that's going to bring us into the next 14 weeks of the journey. So that corresponds with the rest of Awaken and into Expand. And so where you are in the journey right now, Awaken or Light Body Activation 101 is really prepping your light body. And you are moving through your physical body, you're breathing light through your physical chakras, you're trying to integrate the violet flame and the chakra healing on a daily basis, and you're working with your master spiritual guide, you experience your first activation and attunement. If you've already moved through all of Light Body Activation 101, and you're going to jump into Light Body Activation 102, I encourage you to take a transition week, or I encourage a transition week where you go back through the healing experiences that were in this level of the process, and you bring those back into your daily routine if you have not already been in a daily routine. So if you've stopped your daily routine for a while, I would encourage you to come back into 101 and just intuitively pick 7 days worth of healing experiences to move through and recommit yourself to a daily process. And then in 102, what we are doing is we are expanding. So this goes along with the Expand portal. And the Expand portal is bringing you through your heart chakra. So you're moving through, we start with a cleansing of your inner child, but it's really an opening that happens in this part of the journey, and in this light body activation. This is 102. And so you move through your third activation attunement, and this is where we enter the tantric chamber and the Akashic records. So the next place I encourage you to go if you're jumping back in is to come to the tantric chamber and the Akashic records. And you can do them back to back, one day after the other, because these experiences are not like attunements. The attunements, you want to give yourself a week to experience each attunement. So you don't want to try to do like 3 or 4 chakra healing attunements back to back. However, these experiences, the tantric healing chamber and the Akashic records, they not only do they really complement one another, but also they are designed to help you to open to this next level of awareness that we are entering into. And they are also both created at this 432 hertz frequency, which all other recordings after this will be recorded at. And what that frequency does is it is this a frequency that helps our cells to align with the healing vibrations of Mother Earth. So if you were to measure that frequency of the Earth's heart, the center of the Earth, it would be close to that hertz frequency. So we've tuned all of our recordings to that frequency, starting with the tantric chamber. And so I encourage you to come here. Also, this violet flame cord cutting is these 1, 2, and 3, the tantric chamber, the Akashic records, and the violet flame cord cutting. It is a gateway into the next step that we are taking together. So after that 102, and I want to have enough time to talk about our other topics, so I'm not going to bring you into 103, but you're going to be able to see all of that. As soon as you log into your program portal, you'll be able to log into all of there's actually a 104 as well. So those 4 portals correspond with light body activation 101, 102, 103, 104. And what you'll find is that this is a really beautiful structure where you're going to basically see these healing experiences in both places. And what you'll do is you'll notice like there's less support inside of the public program. In other words, you don't have reading and you don't have discussion inside of the public program, whereas inside of our Pleiadian Institute portals, there's a lot more depth in how we're learning it, moving through the material. You also have links to our masterclass series that goes along with the healing itself. And so that in itself, having those 2 spaces to see how can I share this with others, and then how much deeper what are the tools that I need to go deeper myself? That's the goal of these 2 spaces for you. And so you're going to have eternal access to the spaces. And that DNA activation and attunement portal, the goal is just, my vision is a children's portal. So just so you know, that's like the ultimate vision, is to simplify this into like a kid level. That's where we're headed. So like what you see is this simplification inside of the public program, even though it could be even more simple, but that is the essence of healing is there. And then the Pleiadian Institute light body activation portals let you go deeper. So hopefully that gives you a plan for starting and restarting the process. I'm going to encourage you to then schedule your attunement, your next attunement, based on give yourself a week to reintegrate, go into the tantric chamber, the Akashic records, and to the violet flame cord cutting. And what I feel like is that, especially just right now in our world, the process of repeatedly, so the Akashic record, that space is meant to be a space that you can enter repeatedly. I used to share this about the master spiritual guide journey that I would have like a tough week where I had a tough problem that I didn't know how to work through. Like I didn't have the answer to it. And I would work with my master spiritual guide by playing that recording, by working with that recording and just allowing it to just allowing myself to be led by it like subconsciously throughout my week. And I had so much transformation that happened by working with my guides in that way. And the same is true for the Akashic Records. The work that I have done over the past 4 months in the Akashic Records has been absolutely life-changing for me. And the only way I can describe it is when I started doing past life regressions, when I first learned that you could access a different part of your consciousness and release pain and trauma from your body that would help you be healed right now, when I understood that that could happen, I don't know, it called me. And the Akashic Records has done the same thing. There is such an infinite potential for healing when you return to the Akashic Records and the Tantric Healing Chamber. I'm actually going to lead you back through those journeys again in different ways. But for now, I encourage you to think of them like that. Think of the Akashic Records like I've been working with it a lot, like with this big issue that's bigger than me, that involves all these other people, and it's like I feel like I'm almost at the mercy of the situation, and I don't know, I have had this like powerless feeling, and like I don't know I don't know how to find my power in the certain situation. I don't know how to step into my power in the situation. And so the Akashic Records have just shown me over and over again what to do. And it's always simple, and it's always beautiful, and it's always one step at a time. And it's always easier than I thought it would be once I get there and realize like, oh, right, like release, or there's some sort of peace that always comes when I bring my stuff that's going on in the outside world. And like I feel like the outside world for a lot of us right now is just like the energy is just not stable. So and I think we can all feel that, and it's like affecting us in all different ways. And the Akashic Records they help us to open our conscious minds and receive wisdom and clarity in a way that is unlike any other healing experience that we move through. And so I encourage you, those 4 places, touch back on them, and then let that be like your takeoff week. So give yourself that week and then take off into where you've left off. And I like to think of it like, the attunement is like if you're comparing it to a physical exercise program, and I am going to give you this example of running. So when you practice for a marathon, and let's say this is what we're doing, because this is 40 weeks, and it's a marathon of energy healing. And so we need to have this weekly practice that has something that is like your long run. So when you're practicing for the marathon, you do like your weekly runs that are like 3 miles, 4 miles, and then on like Sunday or one day a week, you do the 12-mile run that's going to prepare you for the marathon. And so, which is like the 25 miles or whatever you're doing. So that slowly you condition your body to that 12 miles. So I want you to think of like your Merkaba activation is the marathon, because you're doing like 6 attunements in a row, one right after the other. And so this process right now, like the attunement is the long run. And so that's why already built into the calendar, you're practicing that attunement. And so I want you to think of the priestesses of Atlantean times and the ways in which they connected to the light. And these ways included awareness and attention to elements that we have the same presence of today. And the first, biggest, easiest way to connect to the light is through our physical sun. Our physical sun is a star. So when you think of the stellar gateway, it is the light of our sun. If you can imagine that golden white light, the only people that have words for golden white light are humans on Earth. And the only light that the humans on Earth know that is golden and white physically is the light of our sun. And so when we speak of golden white light, it is physically manifested, that light of the sun. And so daily, I started a practice of greeting the sun. And like it were, like when you wake up in the morning, I started to recognize that the sun was feeding me. So the sun is, if you think of, you are working with the light in this program. Where is the source of that light coming from? So you're breathing this light through your body, but where is the source of that light? Well, there is a universal source of that light, but it is magnified through the sun, and you can physically see it. So the best place to physically connect daily is by going out to the sun and opening yourself to being fed by the sun, to allowing that light to move through your body, really consciously using your breath to breathe that light through your body, specifically turning your body towards the sun, like getting it in a position so that the sun, you can feel the rays of light on your face, and you can feel it on your body, and you can physically breathe that light into your body. That singular practice has helped me on a daily basis to, well, I think of it like strength training in my mind. So, this practice is not just here to do 1 hour a day. It's a way also, as practitioners, and even just going through the healing process, of training our minds to come into alignment with the light as a means of healing ourselves mentally and physically. And so I am not just trying to train my mind in the light during this hour. I am trying to use this hour or 90 minutes as a jumping board for the rest of my day. But the rest of my day is a lot, aside from this 30 or minutes or 90 minutes or however long my formal practice is. And so the sun becomes an anchor. The sun becomes something I can return to multiple times a day, and I can feel it charging me, and it helps to remind me that that is the true source of my strength, because sometimes I forget that the light is the source of my strength. And as I bring my attention to the light, I gain strength, even when I seemingly feel like I need something else. And there's this beautiful quote that's been following me around this week, and this is the quote: "I was never addicted to one thing. I was always addicted to filling a hole inside of myself." And so for some reason, I have this quote screenshotted on my carousel on my computer, and it really speaks to my relationship with the light, because I had unhealthy relationships with substances for significant parts of my life. And if you've had an unhealthy relationship with anything, especially a substance, you can understand this feeling of needing to consume something to feel good. And so the light becomes this with your breath, and becomes a substitute for really consumption of anything. And so I do find that when I reset through my breath in a daily way by bringing my attention physically to the sun, and I want you to just, I feel like we don't honor the power and the magnitude of the sun. And our the ancient priestesses of the light, they worked with the sun like we work with, understanding different core concepts in our basic education. They had a stronger basic education of the power of the sun. We are disconnected from the sun as a source of energy for us. And so I encourage you just to develop a relationship with the light organically, not just in the meditations, but physically, daily. That is the second important practice. And I feel like it seems simple, but it's that repetition of daily developing that relationship with the light that is going to complement everything you're doing on a daily basis in the healing. And it is all going to come together synergistically so that you're living this teaching and this experience. And it's not like a part of your day, but you bring it into the way that you are now interacting with life and with your experience in your human body on this earth right now. And we can shift that way that we are operating and we are perceiving and interacting with these sources of energy that are all around us, and specifically through our breath and our connection to the light. That's where we're going to start. And that actually brings us to this last piece here, which is understanding the crystallinity, the crystalline light. When we first started this program, it was called Crystalline Light Body DNA Activation and Attunement. And then we just took off the crystalline light body part of it because it was really long. But ultimately, and recently, I feel like there are different people that are doing DNA activations and attunements, and because I want you to be educated and be able to be articulate about the process that you're going through, I want to explain this to you. So the crystalline light body surrounds us. It is a field of light that we all have the potential to tune into, and we do regularly through light body activations and attunements. I guess it's possible you could do a light body activation and attunement and not connect to the crystalline grid. I don't know how to do that. The only way I know how to do a light body activation is through the crystalline grid. So that's what you're doing too. Like, we are connecting to that grid together. And the golden orb of light that we are working with is within that grid. And that crystalline energy is why we lead all of our Crystal Healing Therapist certification students through the DNA activation and attunement process, because what happens is when you come into alignment with that field, that crystalline grid of light that is present at all times, but that we can be disconnected from because of the interference on Earth. But when we align with that grid, the best time to do it is at the new moon, when the sky is the darkest, and at certain times of year, like right now, when the Pleiades is the brightest in the sky. And so as we align to and open to the light, activate our light body, and align to the crystalline grid, there's a crystallization of our DNA that happens. So I like to think of it like what you bring your attention to, you become. So we're bringing our attention to, and what you know, so far everyone here knows this, or maybe not fully, but what you know on a basic level is that when you go through this DNA activation and attunement process, there is a cellular shift that happens, and awareness and insight emerges that is like, it's almost like crystallized in form, like it's almost like the synthesis of all this information that comes together, and it's this clarity that emerges. And I consider that part of the healing. There's that, like, that happens on a mental level, it can happen on a physical level, and literally, so that's how we recognize it. It's like that aha moment where like things are just working out for me, or like they're flowing, or I'm feeling brighter, and I'm feeling that you can actually feel it happening. But on a DNA level, your DNA is crystallizing. So there is this language like, well, if you're doing DNA activation attunement, but it's not crystalline DNA activation attunement, then it's not going to be as effective. That is this like narrative that I've seen presented. And so I just want to, I think that sometimes when we are in this kind of community of healers that is on the forefront of different modalities, like language can become a barrier to the work that we're doing. And so know in this work that we're doing that we're doing both DNA activation attunement and we are awakening our crystalline light body. It's happening together with this method that we are moving through. I'm not familiar with any other DNA activation attunement method that isn't taught through this mystery school path where we are shepherds of and priestesses of the light. But it's possible that there are other methods and modalities out there that I'm unaware of that may cause people to think something different. So I am learning to really be extra clear about these frequencies that we're connecting to, because I think more often than not, the people that are coming to us that are doing this work have no clue, and we need to make this like language or what we're doing and talking about accessible. And I think just by talking about it and putting it out there, I know in all the work that I've ever done, not just with DNA activation attunement, this is the most obscure healing modality I've ever worked with. Just with regular, like when I practiced Reiki, and just when I practiced as a no name, I mean like no special modality, I was just practicing as an energy healer and spiritual healer. The most often, what I experience most often is people are intimidated. They don't want to ask questions because they think that it's like they don't know enough, or you know more than they do, and they're aware of that gap in knowledge and they don't know what to ask. And so I think for our purposes, instead of trying to, it's better for us to like bring the language down to the simplest language that we can find and really explain these words that we're using, like crystalline light body and the DNA activation process. Keep on explaining it. And I still feel like, I know that when I used to teach history, it was like I would need to teach for a whole year the same class 5 times a day. That was like my schedule. And so I taught the same exact thing 5 times a day. Then at the end of the year, I finally felt like I understood the topic that I was teaching. Like that repetition allowed me to crystallize my message in a way that was the clearest. And I still feel that way. For this work is even bigger because it's so esoteric. The origin of the healing modality is even greater than like world history. And so there's a lot to process in all of it. And it is just important though I just want you to be aware of using this language and maybe talking about it if possible, with those people who you feel you might be able to talk about it with, and or at very least talk about it here with us. So light body activation it is just as uncomfortable as the moving into a training for like a 6-pack abs. And I like that analogy. And I do feel as though it's challenging. And if you've ever tried to achieve 6-pack abs, just like this process, there's always a natural rhythm that your body's going to move into that is not in alignment with the light. We all have these natural like rhythms and ways of being in which we move into our own, we stop breathing the light through our bodies certain times in certain ways. And so similar to our abs, like there's certain habits that we fall into where we don't keep the diet, or that we don't keep the practices that keep our abs really strong, right? And anyone that's tried to have the 6-pack abs realize that it's a process to keep your abs strong, and it takes a lot of daily dedication. And so that's why these simple practices like the light and recognizing that this stellar gateway, the highest point of your chakras, is connecting to this crystalline light. And as we bring our attention to that crystalline light every single day, outside of our practice, and we do what's inside of our practice, that is where I have found the magic to really happen. And so I wanted to convey that to you today, that this process is about the specific healings that you're moving through. Yes, and I love to talk about all of that, but it's also about it is connecting to the light as a way of life. And it's a different way that we are beginning to connect with our breath and the light throughout our whole day. And whenever I'm struggling, like I'm having like a hard moment of my day, which these past months I've been having like challenges throughout my day. And every single time that I remind myself to come back to deeply breathing this light rhythmically through my body, I release it. And not to say it won't come back, because it can come back, but that practice releases it every time. The practice of breathing the light through my body. And so I encourage you to remember that as you move forward over the next 4 weeks. And this final moment that we have together tonight. And I do just want to honor this, our theme at Pleiadian Institute. And really, I feel like in all the healing work that I am doing right now, just everywhere, in all places in my life, is really connecting to and looking through the eyes of the goddess. And I like you too. We started this conversation with talking about the priestess. And so I think of the priestess as like she is the goddess on earth. She is holding the light of the goddess, but she is doing the physical work on earth with the people. And as we develop and really bring our attention to nurturing a relationship with the light, we can step into this role in our own lives of, I would say, empowered femininity. So whether or not we're stepping into this role of the goddess or this role of the priestess, or looking through the eyes of the goddess, who is looking with eyes of compassion and looking to serve with love, and the eyes of the priestess is the steward of the light. And as we bring those two perspectives, as we look out of those eyes, the eyes of that compassionate divine self that we have, that is the goddess, and that steward of the light. And I feel like if you're here with me, you are a steward of the light. That is what we are here to do. That is our work together on this earth. And so I really want to just end today with an opportunity to breathe into that space together. Breathe into that empowered feminine light. And as we envision ourselves holding these places, these empowered places in our own lives, then there is a healing that happens that is beyond what we are able to do with our eyes open in a conscious state. And so that's where we're going to head right now, is just to step into the healing light of the divine feminine together, to help us step away tonight empowered in our work with the light and motivated to connect daily to the light and to work with the light as a bridge in all of the work that we do in the world. I want to have you begin with me. We're going to start with these breaths.